Partnered by Time's Influence.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Dun Bradstreet Banking Awards 2017. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our partners. Our principal partner, Lakshmi Vilas Bank, our real estate partner, the Wadhwa Group, our ratings partner, Smera Ratings Limited, branding partner, 3i Infotech Limited, and our television partner, ET Now. As is customary in Dun & Bradstreet Award evenings, tradition demands that the tone and texture of the evening be defined by the Managing Director of Dun & Bradstreet India, Mr. Manish Sinha.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At Dun & Bradstreet, we study the published research. We also add to it through our own analysis. Specifically, one of the areas of our analysis has tried to look at the characteristics that were consistent with banks that actually weathered the crisis better than others. We found that there were 4 specific characteristics. The first of it is what we simply call pure play banking model with no shortcuts. So there was a high correlation between failure and unconventional banking models. The second characteristic we found was very simple, governance. So the strongest banks have governance at the core of what they do, and they operate in an environment where the external governance environment is very strong. It's quite assertive, it's unforgiving for things other than honest mistakes. The third area that we found, the third characteristic that we found was actually a very simple characteristic. It was the extent of capitalization. The average regulatory capital ratio of the failed banks was about 9%, and of the banks that succeeded was about 17.5%, about double. There is a fourth characteristic called strategic agility. Bain and Company called it slow in, fast out. So winners in recessions tend to actually break quickly heading into a downturn. They manage costs carefully, they manage risk carefully. It's a little bit like downshifting to a lower gear. It makes your vehicle more responsive and it slows the momentum. So they focus on what the company does best. They aggressively monitor competition, and that sets them up to accelerate after the apex of the curve is over. So that's the fast out. So the farther you can see, the quicker you can turn, and the faster you can corner. We like to believe that we have kept these in mind when we have evaluated the winners in tonight's awards. All the winners of the banking awards have consistently demonstrated one or more of these qualities that we found in our research and that we've compiled in others' research. With this, I would like to congratulate all the award winners. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to thank you all for being here. I wish you the best for the evening, and I hope you have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. To address us next, the very gentleman that Mr. Sinha has succeeded at the helm of Dun & Bradstreet India, Mr. Kaushal Sampath. Let me yield the podium to this dynamic personality, former President and Managing Director, and now Chief Business Advisor, Dun & Bradstreet India, Mr. Kaushal Sampath.
It is my pleasure to be here tonight as we celebrate the 9th edition of the Dun & Bradstreet Banking Awards. The event was started off 9 years ago to recognize the key role that the banking sector was playing in the Indian economy and to objectively select the country's top banks across a select set of parameters, leveraging Dun & Bradstreet's database as well as data that was available in the public domain, especially from the Reserve Bank of India. We are delighted that the event has grown in stature since its inception. I believe that the public sector bank consolidation will become a reality in India in the near future. Empirical evidence from bank loan crises in other parts of the world suggests that resolution often coincides with bank consolidation. Wherever you see in the world, that has generally happened. To that extent, it is probably inevitable in India albeit far more complicated given the nature of our banks. Coming to digital banking, I don't think it is any longer a luxury, whether you look at India or you look at Bharat, but it is a necessity for both bank customers as well as banks themselves. Digital banking has allowed banks to scale up the penetration without the costs and the lead times that you would associate with physical banking. Digital technology is a key enabler of financial inclusion, which is my next topic of discussion. Ensuring financial access to drive growth and entrepreneurship is vital for the Indian economy, given our aspirations for double-digit economic growth. As a nation, all of us recognize that economic progress is meaningless if it does not impact the lives of those at the bottom of the pyramid. It is proven empirically, theoretically, practically across the world that once the poor come into the formal financial system, they have a much greater chance of breaking out of the vicious cycle of poverty. Financial inclusion, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, is not just a luxury in India, but a vital fulcrum for our economic growth, our social stability in the years to come. To conclude, the Indian banking sector is undergoing a radical transformation in many areas. Recapitalization, consolidation, digital banking, financial inclusion, to name a few. The journey is, as always, challenging, but will throw up myriad opportunities. I am confident that future editions of the Dun Bradstreet Banking Awards will continue to capture the achievements of the banking sector as it moves along this exciting path. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker brings to the table over 2 decades of robust experience in banking and financial services. She has been the Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Bank India since April 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Zareen Daruwala, Chief Executive Officer, India, Standard Chartered Bank.
I'm really delighted to speak at the Dun Bradstreet Annual Banking Awards. Over the last few years, these awards have grown to become, I think, one of the best barometers of recognizing performance and achievements of the banking sector. The banking sector where I've spent all my working life, and I think I can claim a small degree of expertise, is standing at the cusp of challenges arising from legacy and the opportunities of partaking a digital future. I think the industry is at crossroads, and I think all of us must quickly embrace the new, shed some of the old. I think it's a moment of truth for all of us. While the macro looks good, the economy continues to register healthy growth. If we were to look at the key parameters, inflation is under control, oil prices remain soft, range-bound, fiscal deficit reined in, interest rates are low. So we have all the tick boxes that we need for the macro stability. And whatever our economists tell us, this is unlikely to deteriorate in the near or even medium term. Early days, of course, to comment on the success of IBC, but a couple of areas where I think fellow bankers can really cooperate. One of the areas, and I was in fact chatting with Mr. Khan just before we came in, is that today if I want bank statements of if we are in a consortium, there are 10 banks, and we want the bank statements, we don't get it very often, customer doesn't cooperate. And I was requesting Mr. Khan that RBI should actually mandate banks to share the bank statements with each other, because unless we share, we can use then technology and analytics to show how the round robin of money movement is happening. And we all know that very often money, debt in A companies being used as equity in B and all kinds of things. But as fellow bankers, we really need to cooperate on sharing financial statements with each other. The other thing, and if any of you happen to engage the government, I'm already doing that, is that with GST, if the borrower consents, if we can have access to the GST records of the customer, because that will also help us pin down whether the turnover is correct, etc., etc. It also helps us understand the entire pattern of the business of the customer. I think these are three key things. If fellow bankers can cooperate, I'm sure we'll find ways to ensure that our due diligence is even better than what we are doing today. I think the onus is on all of us to be proactive in technology. And the way to discovering new oceans is to first to lose sight of the safety of our shores. So I think that's true for all of us. And I would like to quote Stuart Brand, who said that once a new technology starts rolling, if you aren't part of the steamroller, you are a part of the road. So I think the industry is indeed at a cusp, and there can't be a more apt time to recognize sterling performance than in the face of challenge and uncertainty. Presently, for all of us, it feels like after climbing one hill, you start seeing there are more hills to climb. But I'm optimistic and confident that if we continue as an industry to drive legacy issues and build out digital capabilities on the back of our strengths, the challenges would be in our rearview mirror the next time we gather for the DNB Awards. Thank you, and my best wishes to all the award winners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Darwala. It is my pleasure now to introduce Mr. Harun Rashid Khan. A highly respected banking professional, he retired as Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of India in July 2016 after about 38 years of service with RBI. He currently is the Chairman, Non-Executive at National Securities Clearing Corporation Limited and Senior Advisor at KPMG. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Harun Rashid Khan, former Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of India, with a generous and warm round of applause.
It gives me great pleasure to be here on this award function. Last year, 2016, we marked the 25 years silver jubilee of financial sector reforms, which started in 91. So we have seen the tremendous changes what has happened in the financial sector, including the banking sector. Being a consultant, my job is to summarize what others have said. So I use alphabets. I would call what is called A, B, C, D, E challenges of banking, which we need to keep in view. There is no prize for guessing what A stands for. Of course, asset quality, everybody is worried. Coming second to the B part is certainly NPL is overwhelming us, but that should not overwhelm to the extent that we forget to do business. So then brings to the question of the business model. What sort of business model we are following, particularly public sector banks? I would focus on three areas of business model. One is the strategic changes which is happening in the financial system. Second, the competition which banks are facing. Third is, of course, in terms of what innovations can happen in terms of products and process. C, of course, again, no prize for guessing, it's capital. And as we know, as we move towards Basel III, by March 19, we have to, both quantitative terms and qualitative terms, it's a tough challenge. And D, of course, digitization. I brought idea of how to adapt to technology and how do we make it more efficient, effective, and experience is enhanced by digitization. And finally, the E part of it is also, again, no prize for guessing, is employees. You have the whole issue of HR management and talent management in banking sector, particularly in public sector banks, whether you want to improve your asset quality, you want to improve capitalization, you want to change your business model, align with what is the requirement, you want to move towards in a rapid pace to digitization, you need staff and employees who are committed, dedicated, and capable. So let me end with a quote, with a poetry from Faiz Ahmad Faiz. This is for the bankers who are feeling very gloomy and despondent. Dil na umid to nahi, dil na umid to nahi, naakaami to hai. We have not lost hope, but just a battle, that's all. लंबी है गम की शाम, लंबी है गम की शाम, मगर शामी तो है. The night of suffering lengthens, but it is after all a night. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Khan, for a very impactful, insightful, and lyrical end and presentation.
This year, Dun & Bradstreet is bringing out the 11th edition of what has become a much treasured reference point across India and overseas. The publication, India's Leading Banks 2017, I would like to invite back on the dais Mr. Harun Rashid Khan and Mr. Manish Sinha to preside over this entire ceremony. The first category is retail, and we'll start with the public sector. The winner for the best public sector bank retail is State Bank of India. Continuing in the same category of retail, we now move on to the private sector, and the winner for the best private bank is HDFC Bank Limited. Staying with retail, we are exploring excellence in the foreign bank space now, is Citibank. For the next set of awards, I call on the dais Mr. A.G. Vidyasagar, President Retail Banking, Lakshmi Vilas Bank. So this is for asset quality, for best private sector bank, and that's HDFC Bank Limited. Best foreign bank asset quality goes to Citibank. And thank you, Mr. Vidyasagar. We now move on. The best public sector bank in priority sector lending agriculture goes to Canara Bank. From public sector to private sector, the winner is South Indian Bank. Continuing in the private sector with the category of priority sector lending, excluding agriculture, the winner is Lakshmi Vilas Bank. We now move on to the next set of awards. Best Public Sector Bank, Digital Banking Mobility. Once again, State Bank of India. Moving now to the private sector, the winner for the Best Private Sector Bank, Digital Banking Mobility is HDFC Bank Limited once again. Best Public Sector Bank, Digital Banking, Online Transactions is State Bank of India. The next winner, Best Private Sector Bank, is Kotak Mahindra Bank. I now call on Mr. Sankar Chakraborty, CEO Smera Ratings Limited, and Mr. Mrinal Singh, Senior VP Business Development, Smera, to preside over the next set of awards. Moving on to the category of Rural Reach. Best Public Sector Bank can get really intense. But then again, there's State Bank of India, so pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered. Best private sector bank within the category Rural Reach is ICICI Bank Limited. Congratulations, sir. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Chakraborty and Mr. Singh for presiding over the awards. Under the government scheme participation, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, the Best Public Sector Bank Award is yet again won by State Bank of India. And under the same category, the Best Private Sector Bank Award for Government Scheme Participation is won by Indus Ind Bank. The Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, the winner for the Best Public Sector Bank Government Scheme Participation is Punjab National Bank. And under the same category, the winner in the private sector is Bandhan Bank. We're going global next. Coming out tops in the category PSU, Global Business, is State Bank of India. In the private space, the award winner for high growth goes to RBL Bank Limited. Now we shift gears and move on to the final three awards, the big awards of the night. Best Public Sector Bank overall is State Bank of India. The Best Private Sector Bank at the 2017 Banking Awards is HDFC Bank Limited. For overall best banks right now, shifting the grid to foreign banks. A lot tighter by way of competition in this one, but in the end it was Citibank. Thank you, Mr. Sinha. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Thank you very much. I now call on Ms. Preeta Mishra, Director, Learning and Economic Insights Group, Dun Bradstreet, to raise a vote of thanks.
It's indeed my pleasure to propose the vote of thanks today. I know we've had a lot of discussion, structural transformation, challenges, etc. But there is no taking away from the pivotal role that the Indian banking sector has played and continues to play and will play in the country's economic development. I would first like to start by thanking Mr. Khan. Thank you, Mr. Khan, for taking your time out and being here with us today. I would also like to thank Ms. Zareen Daruwala. I would like to also take this opportunity to thank our partners, Lakshmi Vilas Bank, Smera Ratings, 3i Infotech, the Vadva Group, and ET Now. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to congratulate all the winners of the banking awards this year. Thank you.
Partnered by Times Influence.